Welcome to the RetroBlood.
Welcome back, everybody, to the RetroBlood as we continue our month-long discussion talking 1980s anthology horror movies. Up next, if y'all like to go down rabbit holes of ritual, spiritual demons, if y'all like guys from New York who are like cops and try to figure out mysteries of people randomly doing suicides, and you run into some therapist who shows her titties off, and if you like a movie that was originally called Vampires, even though there's like nothing that has to do with vampires almost at all, it just has some girl with some sort of magic healing Wolverine machine in her house, then brother, these two movies are for you, brother, because the RetroBlood is talking all about Fright House. J. Allison, James Conn, what's happening, Allison? How was your stay at the Fright House?
Oh my God. So I picked this, and there are a few things in my life that I regret, but this is one of them.
Come on, brother. I kind of like some of these movies. Home, what was the tagline on here? Home is where the scare is at, or something? What the hell is it?
I actually have, the more I read about this movie, like I did do some research on it.
Yeah.
The more that I read about this movie, the more I liked it, but based on what the suffering and the effort that this guy put in to make it.
Yeah.
And like, I can't, like, the movie is terrible. Like, I mean, I used to think, like, I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but like, the worst movie, in my opinion, the worst movie ever made is Legends of the Fall with Brad Pitt. That's like the worst movie of all time, in my opinion. But then now I've seen this. So this movie is pretty bad. It's neck and neck for worst movie between this and Legends of the Fall. So I don't know.
Come on, brother. This one had some charm to it. You know what I mean? I still hate the movie I hate the most is Starship Troopers, and that shit sucks still compared to this movie. All right, come on, brother. We got our boy Les on here, Mr. New York, hairy man banging some hot blonde. You know what I mean? Come on.
One thing that I found amazing about this, and I'll bring it up, is that Al Lewis. Whatever you want to say about Al Lewis, he's a real actor, right? He's a professional.
I have a lot to say about this Al Lewis guy. I could not believe my eyes when I was like,
you know who Al Lewis is?
Yes, right? I could not believe my eyes, Allison, when I saw this fucking grandpa from the Munsters on here acting like some sort of cult witch master guy. Bro, I loved it. I loved it was so corny. I was like, how the fuck did they get this guy to play this fucking role?
He needed the money. That's exactly what happened. I guarantee he needed the money.
I was like, wait, is that the happy-go-lucky grandpa from the Munsters playing some sort of like, he's around all these like naked, topless witch sex girls, demons, and he's like the head count master of them all, and he's like, and he's still goofy? He's still goofy during the whole thing?
He's still goofy, yeah. But that's the big swerve, though. It's like, when that happened, like, that completely jumped the shark for me. I was like, "Oh, are you fucking kidding me?" But
I loved it. I can't help it, bro. I loved it. It was so ridiculous. It was so ridiculous. My head was spinning.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Oh my God.
But like, you can tell though, like, the difference between a real actor like Al Lewis,
yes,
and everyone else in this movie.
Oh yeah,
just the way he delivers lines. Just the scene where he's talking on the phone.
Yeah, by himself with a martini.
Yeah, by himself. Like, he looks like a fucking like Shakespearean actor compared to everybody else in this damn thing. Like, I don't even know where they found these fucking people, but
some New York bar probably. That's where they fucking found these people.
I think that I think that he might be from Pennsylvania.
I think he's from New York.
Is he really? Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll talk about some stuff during the Who Booked This Shit segment.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about with this movie.
Yeah.
So a couple things, like right off the bat. Like, first of all, I just want to, for everybody who is listening to our show. Thank you, by the way. Thank you for listening to
Thank you.
RetroBlood, supporting the RetroBlood. Check out the YouTube. We got a lot of stuff planned for this year. Like me and Allison has already game planned a lot of stuff that we're going to be doing pretty soon for you guys. But, check out the Facebook, Instagram, all that for all the updates of what we're going to be doing this year. But, for a shoot, everybody. So, when me and Allison picked this, Allison picked this movie, right?
I picked all these movies.
He found it on the Tubi, right? And we're like, oh, fuck yes. A fucking movie that's only an hour. So for a shoot over here, so I'm watching this movie, right? And I know there's, it's anthology. And it says in the title, oh, yeah, these 2 stories about a witch and all this crap. Yeah. I'm like, okay. And I watched the whole, first movie, and I'm like, wait a minute. Is this, one of them, anthology where it's, the same story? We're just seeing 2 different perspectives. And I'm just thinking, I didn't really see 2 different, perspectives in this movie. I just saw, I don't remember there being a teacher. I mean, maybe the blind was a teacher. I have no idea what the teacher was in this. So I was gonna text Alice, and I was like, man, this movie is kind of weird. It says an anthology, but it's not really. And I was gonna talk all about that. And then next thing we know, the fuck, I guess the Abaddon story or vampires, whichever one you want to call it. And at Tubi's eyes, it sucks so much that it even picked that shit up, brother. How do you not get picked up by Tubi? Remember? Yes. Yeah,
I texted you and I'm like, is there 2 stories in this?
Yeah.
Because it just kept going and going and going, and we didn't ever get to a second story.
Yeah.
And then then you sent me that link to the full version.
Yeah, on YouTube.
I think my response was, I'm not watching 110 minutes of this shit.
No. But okay, so I was like, okay, so that makes sense that we didn't find the other story, so I had to find it. So I searched on YouTube, and there's one YouTube guy that has the full movie on there. I'm like,
yeah, this movie has got to be super fucking rare. We may be the only people that have done a podcast on this movie.
This one is, yes, it was super rare, and I think a couple people have talked about it. We might be the first podcast about it. I don't know, but. There is a lot of charm to this movie, but it's ridiculous charm of man, this is some wild stuff. And even the Abaddon story, I was getting confused during that story a lot. And there's reasons why you can get confused during that story, because apparently, we'll talk about it more on the Who Booked the Shit, but apparently half the film was filmed for another movie and they just added it to this one.
And it was also released separately as well.
Yeah.
In a different form, kind of.
Yes, but we'll get on to that. So let's get some of the history going on out of the way, because we got some fun stuff for the history though to talk about today. So this movie was released, of course, on VHS, probably in some sort of back alley blockbuster in the fucking dungeon of New York or something, where this fucking shit came out probably. But it was released on the VHS, brother, and we talked about VHS. Only releases and stuff, they can have their charm to them. Sure. When I think of a VHS release, I mostly think of the 4th or 5th, installment of a series. Yeah, I was it's we've already beaten this story to the bush. Let's just put one out in video and see what happens. But let's talk a little bit about the pro wrestling that happened. So on October 16th, 1989, we actually had an episode of Prime Time Wrestling. And, we don't really talk too much about the primetime wrestling, but that was pretty much the WWF's main TV show, besides, Saturday Night's Main Event. Saturday Night's Main Event was probably more of a prominent show, but this is more of their weekly show, was the primetime wrestling. And, this show was, it's pretty well respected, because it's pretty much known to be the Bobby the Brain Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon show. They're on there, and they're on there just ripping each other the whole time and talking about the matches and the storylines. They have really good chemistry with each other. So that's pretty much what this show is pretty much known for. And it has a format where, you have the big stars and they're facing the jobbers, and then here and there we might see a good match. So pretty much the normal style of wrestling on TV around this time was basically showing off 1 or 2 big stars, having them face a couple of jobbers, beat them up, make them look good, and then our main event's probably going to be a pretty good match between two mid-card stars, or main event stars and stuff. But this one, I didn't watch the whole thing. I know you didn't either. Just it's little. This one was a little long, and I'm not gonna watch an hour and 30 minutes of the boss man just like beating up some jobber. Even though that does sound fun. But a couple of things I want to talk about here on this particular episode was the. So this one was pretty interesting. So this one was leading into the 1989 Survivor Series. All right. And it's pretty fascinating how they used to do like the Survivor Series in the 80s. Because we didn't have like one singles match on the show. It was 10 teams of 4 all on the show. And we have like, Macho Man has his own team. Hulk Hogan has his own team. $1 Million Man has his own team. So basically what they did was they put they like mixed, feuds all together. And it had like these 4-on-4 elimination matches. So I thought that was pretty clever, they're doing it like that back in the day, because you get all these guys on the show together, and you don't have to put any belts on the line. You don't have to worry about that. And it's like an elimination one. So if you win, the team wins. So it's a pretty, obviously they created the Survivor Series to go against, Starrcade. But, obviously, also too, WWF around this time also too was expanding. So, they had so much success with WrestleMania that, I think they did WrestleMania Survivor Series, then SummerSlam, but I could be wrong about that.
That sounds about right.
So that
sounds about the right order.
Yeah. So this one was kind of interesting too, because we had Roddy Piper was on this. He was like a guest person on this episode, and they had him, live Viva Satellite, giving his opinions about everything, and he was captaining one of his own Survivor Series teams as well. And of course, he was a babyface at this time. The Piper was, and it was basically Piper and Gorilla kind of like trying to double team Bobby Heenan, but Bobby Heenan was really good about his insults back. This episode though, Allison and everybody out there, this would classify as we can't do this stuff in 2024 anymore. Okay, and the first one is when Gorilla Monsoon called Bobby Heenan. He called him a fruitcake.
Yeah, can't do that anymore.
Can't do that one. And so this one had a couple matches, squash matches and stuff. But I think the thing that caught my eye the most was during. I'm not sure when it actually happened on the date, but during this particular time, the Macho Man Randy Savage won the King of the Ring tournament by cheating and defeating Hacksaw Jim Duggan. All right. So this is when he created his whole Macho King persona. How did you like the Macho King there, Allison?
I don't mind the Macho King. I mean, I like Randy Savage, period. I think he's fantastic. Although, as with a lot of wrestlers of his time, I became like a fan later in my life.
Yes.
I didn't really appreciate him so much when I was a child. But yeah, well, of course, when I was a little kid, I guess I liked faces a lot. He was always a heel when I was a little kid. But yeah, I liked I love Randy Savage. I think he's fantastic, and I like the Macho King era as well, with the Sensational Sherry.
Yeah.
Era. I love her too. She's great. So
yeah, this is like his yeah, this is like his. I think this is like his second like heel run. Like he had that heel run, going into WrestleMania 5 against Hulk Hogan, and then he started to do this heel run with the Sensational Sherry, with this whole gold, Macho King persona, which I always liked the Macho King. I thought it was like a cool little like style heel character. I thought he was like one of the best King of the Ring winners that they ever had. They actually took the gimmick and made something out of it. I can think of him. Yeah. Booker T was a pretty good
Booker T.
Yeah, Booker T. And I think Owen Hart did his King of the Ring pretty well. He didn't dress like a king or nothing, but he did his pretty well. But yeah, like so I don't really know what was going on here in the 80s or this segment, but this one is very strange. So Macho Man, after he won, he was on the Brother Love show. Okay, I love you, brother. All right, so Macho Man was basically forcing Sensational Sherry, who helped them win, to explain to us, the audience, of the different reasons that Hacksaw is not going to beat Randy Savage at all. And
right.
I guess Randy Savage wasn't really liking her like answers, so he like grabs her by the throat and starts choking her. Right? And then she like corrects herself, and she's basically saying, "You're not on his level. You are not. You're not half the man he is," and all this stuff. And yeah, and I was like, "What the? We cannot do this." Wow, that's.
I was about to say, talking about shit we couldn't do now. Like, there's no way that he could.
I was like, "Fuck!" And then like it is weird because then they cut back, and then Gorilla's on scene. It's like, "What do you think about that, Bobby? Hey, you should never put your hands on women like that." And then Bobby makes a joke about punching a woman. All right, and then they go to Roddy Piper, and Roddy Piper's like, "Oh, wait a minute, I don't think we should like be talking about this." It was like a really awkward segment. All right, and I was like,
yes, like
even in the 80s, it's like, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't have gone like this route. You know what I mean? With like, choking women and shit. But yeah, that was pretty wild. I was like, man, that just caught me off guard. I was like, with that, but it's a different time and stuff. I was just like, man, like they're. Obviously they're just trying to show that the Macho Man guy was very paranoid. So he's so paranoid that he would even harm his own manager. So, but I just thought that was like really like weird. And then of course the main event of this match was Bret Hart, all right, versus Rick Martel, and they had a pretty good match. It was like almost like a 25-minute match, and it ended with I think it was like a double. Was it like a time limit draw?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, because that's what Bobby Heenan said. He's like, that's why I picked a draw, because they need at least 30 minutes to get a winner from these two.
Yeah,
and how long that Bret can go and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So actually, it's a pretty good show. Like I said, I didn't get to see the whole thing. Maybe later down the RetroBlood, we'll talk a little bit more about primetime wrestling. But it is a very fascinating show for its time. Just for the chemistry between Bobby the Brain Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon at the time. Oh, and then another thing about this was really interesting as well. This was the time period that Tony Schiavone was one of the main commentaries for WWF matches.
Yeah. So this was like his year in WWF, right?
Yes. And that always just throws me off every time I hear his voice in there. Especially when he was like talking about the Brain Busters. It's like, oh, fuck, this is like Crockett, brother. Like, talk about Tully and Arn and shit. He's all here talking about brain busters and shit. Like, it's just weird. Yeah, Tony Schiavone in the WWF was always like that was like a weird, like little, like eerie. He said he loved it there. So.
Well, I've heard him say different things. I've heard him say that he left because he wanted to be closer to home, which is, or, closer to where he's from, which is why he went back to WCW, but he instantly regretted it. Yeah. And he wanted to come back, but Vince really didn't want him back, not based on his work, but because he's like, I don't want to take you away from your home and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, very, very, very interesting show. Everybody check it out if you have the time. But let's move on to some metal over here, brother.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, we all know my love for hair bands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got the tights on, brother. You got the hairspray, the frizzy hair. You do that rhythm guitar thing where you're like thrusting. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
about. But, there's certain hair bands that are just like they just do the gimmick. They're just on there. They just kind of like, they're more show than they are substance. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then there's some that actually are, have great sound to them. You know what I mean? They have the gimmick, with the hair and the glam or whatever, but they also sound good too. Like they know how to play their instruments. They have good vocals, and they have, they do their thing. And I think this band that we're going to be talking about right now, who released their debut album kind of later in the 80s, obviously, we're in 1989, was Babylon AD.
Yes.
All right. So this band is a little interesting, and I did some research about them. Okay.
Awesome.
So the band, the main singer guy, his name is Derek Davis. All right. And he's been praised to being a pretty good rock singer, but he's also known to be a very good blues singer as well.
Okay.
Because he also has a blues band he does too. I think they're just called like blues rock and roll or something like that. But the thing about this band I was doing my research is apparently like a lot of fans that heard him, they really liked him and stuff. But the problem is they started so late in the 80s. You know what I mean? They started in 1989, brother. I mean, that is pretty much like, not even like 2 years later, we're going to it's going down the drain. You know what I mean? It's going quick. This hairstyle is going down. Because they released this album in 1989, and then they did one in 1992, and then that was pretty much it for like a long time.
And it was over by then.
Yeah, it was already over by then. But this one actually gets pretty good praise from a lot of fans who like Hair Man. Like, they pretty much said the same thing. They're saying, like, if these guys would have came out a little earlier, they probably would have been, like, selling out arenas, for the time being. With these guys, they've probably been selling out. And I was listening to it, and I was like, you know what? Like, these guys are pretty good, man. Like, I like a lot of, like, the vocals. I like the catchy, tunes to them. I think they sound pretty... I think they're rocking. You know what I mean? Like, they ain't no docking, but I think they're still rocking.
No docking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make. Like... Yeah. So the thing about it, like, to me, this album is exactly the reason that Nirvana killed all the hair bands. Because by this time in the 80s, everything had become so like cookie cutter, and so like every hair metal album was exactly the same. You had your like that particular sound. You always had a ballad so that they could put it on MTV. And
that's a love making music there, Allison.
Right. And every single, album was exactly the same. And a lot of those bands that kind of came out at the end of the 80s kind of got killed. Like Extreme. Extreme was a great band. And if they had come out, early in the 80s, they would have been huge. Maybe this band would have been big. I just didn't really dig it. I just didn't really like it. But like a lot of bands that came out during this time period just got killed. Their careers got killed by Nirvana, when grunge came out, or got big, I guess. But, it's like, this was, to me, it was like right at the death throes of hair metal. And it was just about to go straight down the toilet. Like, all these people's careers would be over. It's kind of amazing they actually got a second album.
Yeah.
They
were like I said, like around this time, like like it was kind of like it was like the end and the height of the glam bands, because the problem is it was just so oversaturated with them. And there was like so many that you couldn't really pick one out of the lineup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But after time, stuff is good. And basically, I think the reason they kind of got a second album, to be honest with you, is, and this is what I was going to talk about too, is one of their songs off this album, "The Kid Goes Wild," which is a weird song. It's a good song, but at the end, it's like, it has like, I think it's the main singer like screaming that he's in some sort of gun shootout with the cops or something. It's just totally random that happens at the end of the song. So that song actually got picked up to be in RoboCop 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that, obviously they got a little fame off that song. So I think because of that fame, that's where they got some money to actually release the second album of theirs. And then after that, it kind of died off a little bit until they kind of resurfaced again in 1998. But yeah, like I said, I like it. I like some of the tracks they had on here. I think they're pretty fun. When I was kind of going down the list of the ones I like. But Allison, I have a deep question that the listeners want to know your thoughts on this as well too. Yeah. If you were doing a cult ritual with topless 80s girls with the really bad makeup on in the 1980s, okay, would you have the pentagram in that one room with some lights going on? Which song by Babylon AD would you be playing? Would it be Hammer Swings Down, all right, or would it be the Bang Goes the Bells?
Oh, it'd be Bang Goes the Bells.
Oh, okay. So you'd be banging those bells where you see some ritual titty girls?
Exactly.
Okay. Making sure.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
What about Caught in the Crossfire, brother? Come on now. These guys have some great names. Shot O Love. Okay? Come on now.
Caught in the Crossfire. Oh my God, this is
Sally Dance. That's a perfect ritual song.
Stereotypical death metal hair metal right here. Banco the Bells. Yeah.
Banco the Bells, brother. There's some good songs.
How about, or we could just play Desperate, because I was desperate for this damn movie to be over.
Bro, I don't know what you're talking about. I loved all this shit. All right. But like I said, we'll play some at the end.
Yeah.
Some Babylon AD at the end. But, go check them out, everybody. I think they're pretty fun. If you guys like, actually, to be serious, I kind of like them. I thought they were pretty good. If y'all like pretty good hair bands, you want to get back into that style, check them out if you haven't heard them before. But let's get this going on, because we have a lot to talk about when it comes to this particular film. So let's talk about who booked this shit, brother.
Yeah, who booked this shit?
Who booked this shit? I mean, fuck. This guy named
Lynn Anthony.
There
was 3 movies that he attempted to make. My understanding was Vampires was his first movie. That was actually completed. And then he made this movie called Negatives, or he tried to make this movie called Negatives, but he didn't pay anybody.
Yes.
Or the producer kept bouncing checks, so they shut down production. And that had Dwayne Jones, is that his name?
Yeah.
The guy from
Dwayne L. Jones, yes.
Dwayne L. Jones, who was in Night of the Living Dead.
Yes, the original one.
Yeah, the original one. And he was also in this. It was the second horror film ever. Then he recycled parts of that movie into the second story of this movie. At least the Dwayne L. Jones scenes. And then he shot new scenes to kind of go along with it, sort of. And that's why it all looks so different. Like, some of the scenes look different. Like the older scenes look different than the newer scenes, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, because he did. Because originally that one that became Abaddon, like I was saying, it was originally called Vampires. All right.
Yeah. So it's really strange, because when you look up Vampires, it was made in 1986. And when I looked it up, it says it was Dwayne Jones's last movie. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. He was in Fright House in 1989. But the scenes from this movie were reused for Negatives, and they were reused for this movie. So this Lynn Anthony guy is kind of like an Ed Wood sort of character, person. Like where he's just like taking, footage that he shot for other purposes and repurposing it for his movies.
Yes.
What I have is that Vampires was also re-released as a movie called Abandoned.
Yeah.
But in this, it's clearly called Abaddon, which is a completely different concept. So I'm a little bit confused. But yeah, he made it's so confused. Like, he made Vampires, and Vampires was released, and it's an hour. It's an hour, a little bit over an hour long. And then he tried to use the same footage for Negatives, which wasn't finished. And then he kept hiring new crews that were cheaper and less experienced. And that's why, like, the quality of this movie, like, comes and goes, because, like, some of the crew didn't really know what they were doing because they were cheap. So, yeah. So, Ernest R. Dickerson worked on this, who went on to direct a bunch of Walking Dead episodes and a bunch of TV shows. And I believe he also worked on Day of the Dead with George Romero. And Lynn Anthony went on to produce that documentary, Document of the Dead, which we talked about, I think, when we talked about Dawn of the Dead. Like, it's a documentary by George Romero making Dawn of the Dead. So that's why I thought he was from Pennsylvania, because, I thought he was part of that whole George Romero scene. But, and with the connection to Dwayne Jones, who was also from Pennsylvania. But yeah, but he got his movie made, though, right? I mean, he did the best he could, and he took the footage that he could make, and he made a movie, and it got completed. And you gotta hand it to him for that. I think. I mean, you gotta give him that kind of credit. He stuck with it, and he got a movie made.
Yeah, and I was kind of like, when I was doing my research, I was trying to figure out, like, why is this like an anthology series? Because I guess, like, when it actually fully got released, maybe it was just both stories. But it's like, it's like it's basically almost like one full movie and then another full movie. So I think I think that's what he was trying to do. At first is maybe like do like, vampires, and then maybe just do Fright House after that. But then it's just like, vampires had so much, stuff to it because, like you were saying, he was filming some stuff for that movie. He was going to do negatives. Okay. That's most of the scenes where he had Mr. Jones in there. Mm-hmm. And, he basically, he didn't pay any of the staff. So they're like, oh, fuck this guy. You know what I mean? And it's kind of weird, too, because also, did you ever hear about this girl, this Bee Queen girl called Debbie Recon?
Debbie Rochon, yeah. Her scenes are not in this movie, though.
Yeah.
So she, from my understanding, she was going to be in negatives.
Yes.
And that would have been one of her first movies, but the negatives was never completed. But none of her scenes actually made it into Fright House. I don't know about vampires. If I had known this in time, I would have tried to watch Vampires to see if it's literally the same footage, or because that would be interesting to see what Vampires looked like. Because if Vampires wasn't released, then I would be okay. That's one thing. Like, it wasn't released, but it was, and he used the same footage 2 years later or 3 years later to make Fright House.
Yeah. Okay. Because I wasn't sure about that. So you're saying is there's actually a story out there that was released before this, actually called Vampires, and basically when he released Fright House, he did the whole Fright House storyline, and then he just added the Abaddon storyline. He just used the same footage from the Vampires to add it in there.
At least the Dwayne Jones footage, yes. So in 1986, he made a movie called Vampires, which was also released as a movie called Abandon, according to what I can see. And then in 1988, so 2 years later, he was filming a movie called Negatives. So Dwayne Jones plays Charles Harmon in Vampires. That's the name of his character, which is the name of his character in this movie.
Yes.
And then in 1988, he was filming Negatives, in which Dwayne O. Jones also plays Charles Harmon, and it says archive footage from Vampires. And then in 1989, he released Fright House, where Dwayne Jones plays Charles Harmon yet again, and it just says archive footage from Vampires. So for some reason, like he took, and Vampires is only an hour long, so he took like the Dwayne Jones footage from Vampires, tried to insert it in this other movie that wasn't completed, and then he inserted it into the Abaddon section of this movie.
Yes.
Although none of these people are vampires, so I have no idea why it's called Vampires. Why? What does that have to do with vampires?
Well, if you actually remember his scenes within Abaddon, he was like holding himself back a little bit, and when he had connections with his quote unquote daughter. So maybe he was holding himself back from sucking the blood or something. I'm not really sure.
Because there's also not vampires in the movie Vampires either.
Well, yeah, maybe.
So the description of the plot, the description of the plot of Vampire says the plot concerns mysterious events at a private girls' school in which the student's life energy is drained by a mad scientist machine.
Yeah, which is basically what happened in this movie.
Right. Yeah. So I think this movie is probably most of Vampires re-released.
Yeah. And
then the cover of Vampires looks like it has Bela Lugosi on it, or a picture of face that looks like Bela Lugosi's face. And it says, "What is the truth behind the American nightmare?"
Well, apparently it's a mad scientist, art school, everlasting machine.
Apparently so. Like, I can't really believe what I just saw. But like, like it.
They had really good. They had really good '80s music.
They did have really good '80s
not
music.
Story. Come on, now, brother. That was some good stuff.
This is something else. This is something else.
But yeah, like
it's amazing. Really,
it kind of seems like I mean, listen, I can as a very very independent filmmaker myself, you know what I mean. I can respect some of the stuff that he was doing. This Anthony feller, because I have done some of this as a low budget man myself, and I'll tell you what they are. So when he did the scenes where people were like talking on the phone and just reiterating, like obviously their person's not on the line, they're just reiterating. Like it's kind of like one of those things where like, you're answering the phone. You're like, oh yes. Oh, where am I going to meet you? Oh yes, I'll meet you at the corner cafe. I'll be there, no problem. What time? Oh, 10 o'clock. Oh yeah, that's great. Like just iterating every little. Like you don't really talk like that on the cell phone. You know what I mean? No. But when you don't have a split screen, that's what you got to do. Okay.
Right. You know what I find amazing? Oh, sorry. I was going to say, you know what I find amazing about every single phone call scene in a movie is that none of them follow the rules of phone calling. So, like when they're done talking, they do it in this movie. They do it in every movie. Like when they're done talking, they just hang up.
Well, you don't hang up after a phone call?
I do, but I say, okay, goodbye. I'll see you later. Like I don't just finish talking and just hang the phone up without telling the person.
Well, there's serious business going down here, Allison.
Okay.
We're talking about a school teacher, okay, who's giving these kids therapy, having them kill herself so she can be naked with her ritual friends. That's some serious business here, Allison. Okay. You won't say, what are you supposed to tell her? Oh, yeah, have a good day. I'll talk to you later. No, you're going to be like, hang that shit up. All right? That's what's going to happen.
Oh, my God. All right. But yeah, so as this was probably no surprise to anyone. This was also the last movie that Lynn Anthony ever made.
Man, what a legend.
Never to be seen again.
Gone too soon, brother. I can respect it. You know what I mean? Hey, we'll have his shit live on through us. Mm-hmm.
We will. We'll have it live on through the RetroBlood because we're celebrating Fright House and Lynn Anthony's career tonight.
Yeah, brother.
So I wonder I tried to look him up, but I couldn't find him. I wonder what he's doing now. But another interesting thing that relates back to kind of heavy metal. So the music on this movie, I was shocked to see this. I could not believe my eyes. The music on this movie was written by Tony Bon Jovi.
Oh, that's random.
Now, Tony Bon Jovi is John Bon Jovi's cousin. So, obviously, he couldn't afford John Bon Jovi for this, but he did get Tony Bon Jovi, John Bon Jovi's cousin. So, but actually, Tony Bon Jovi was famous before John Bon Jovi was. He's a fairly famous producer in New York City. He produced Ace Frehley's first solo album. He did quite a bit of stuff, and he owned a recording studio, and that's where Bon Jovi got started. That's where he recorded "Runaway" and all those really early tracks that he used to get signed. He did that in his cousin Tony's studio, and Tony composed the score for this movie, which I thought was kind of interesting and kind of cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. But let's get on to it, man, because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the storyline of both Fright House and Babylon. So I say let's get on into it and see what we can explore in these two fascinating stories.
Let's do it.
All right. So we start off with the first one that we're going to be talking about is going to be the actual Fright House movie. And we'll do it like we did on all these shows. At the end, we'll give our which story that we liked better. Did we like the Fright House story better, or did we like the Babylon story better? All right.
Yeah.
But let's start with this Fright House one. So we start off right away at this mansion, right? Mm-hmm. And there's like this. So I didn't know his name. You know how like you get. I don't like. Okay, so when I do notes, sometimes I want to hear the characters say, their names on there so I can catch it. I don't just want to look on like, the page or whatever to find their names. I have to do that sometimes because sometimes they don't tell their names at all. So for the longest time, I didn't know this Les guy's name, so I just called him New York. During my notes, just say New York did this and New York did that. So he's over here, and they're saying that I guess this mansion was like nobody's there, it's abandoned or something. There was like a owner used to be in there, but he got killed or something, and he's around there, and he's with his I guess he proposed to his girlfriend, all right, Delissa, all right, some blonde chick, and they're getting married over there right by the so he proposed to her like right by the house and everything. And, this is one of those ones where, like, you can, like, as a filmmaker, I could tell all the little cheap tricks he was doing. Like, we're gonna do a close-up of him just talking, proposing. Obviously he did that in post while he was putting the ring on her finger and everything. And then, I guess they had, like, the house to themselves or something. And so, Allison, let's say you're going to get married to your blonde wife, okay? Or girlfriend. Mm-hmm. You have this huge mansion that you're going to be staying at. Where's the first place you would have sex, brother? Would it be one of the cool 8,000 rooms that's in there? Maybe it's a ritual room. I don't know, maybe. Or would you actually have sex on the grass?
On the grass.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense. Because that's what they did, brother. Our boy Les showed off his hairy man chest hair, and they were starting to get it going. All right. And we can tell there's some weird stuff happening around the house. And then we see this dude. Brother, this guy was trying to audition. I think he was trying to audition for Babylon. All right, this guy with his fucking... with the Walkman with his hair.
Ryan is his name, I think. Yeah, this guy was like this shit was out of control. Like, this was like...
Yeah, like, he didn't really do anything, but this hair, brother, was fantastic.
Yes, I was like, it was like a mullet. It's like a mullet.
Yeah.
But also super curly, and it was just like
sticking straight up,
like a poofy mullet. Yeah,
huge.
It was insane.
I could not stop staring at his hair, brother. I was like, fuck. I was just thinking, like, you know what? I can rock that. You know what I mean? I want to bring that back.
Yeah. They're basically, so this mansion looks like Hogwarts.
Well, yeah, basically. Okay. Yes. Well, maybe they, yes, maybe that's where they, maybe that's where they filmed it later on.
Maybe. It looks exactly like Hogwarts from the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure why this guy was here. He was just like walking around with his Walkman and stuff, but eventually, like, we just see him, we cut to a scene and now he's in the grass, and he apparently, then we see some cops coming over and we find out that Les is actually a cop, all right? And he's working with this detective girl, Victoria. And they're like, oh man, we had this guy, committed suicide and everything at this house. And, Les didn't bring up like, hey, I was here at this house and stuff. I didn't see anything happen, or I don't know. And they found the body and stuff. And now Les is basically saying, hey, we're having a lot of these suicides happen. I guess there's a lot of suicides going on in this town right now. So Les wants Victoria to go undercover. I was like, wait a minute. What? She kind of looks older.
I thought Victoria was a doctor.
Oh, she was the doctor? Who was the detective?
No, she's who you're talking about, but I don't think she's a cop. I think he's just having her infiltrate the whatever it is, the cult or whatever.
Yeah, because his girl, his main, sidekick, or I don't know. I guess she was the doctor. Maybe she's like the Scully. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
She's like the doctor, but she also has cop credentials too.
Maybe. So
her plan is, his plan is like maybe have her infiltrate the school and see what's going on with all that. Then we actually get a shot of, the only reason I'm bringing this up because I thought it was kind of funny. We get a shot of the Voorhees grave. Did you catch that?
We do. Yeah. Yeah, that was great.
It had the June 13th and July 13th.
It's got to be it's got to be a callback, right?
Yeah.
Tribute.
And so, and this is like, during this whole movie too, like, we also have like these like really cheap looking demon eyes to show that there's some sort of like evil thing around this house.
Everything in this movie is cheap. Al Lewis is probably the most expensive thing in this movie.
Yes, pretty much. Yes. Okay. All right. So now Les, he has a brother. All right. And Les's brother, he is on the conspiracy side, kind of. But he's also religious at the same time, which is kind of weird. So he calls up, Les and stuff. And no, he calls up the main bishop. He was like, hey, man, there's some weird stuff going on at that mansion again. I can kind of feel it. I've been researching it. And the bishop's just telling him, hey, don't get involved with all that. It's not what you think. That's just conspiracy theory stuff. He's like, no, man, I've been researching it. And, I guess he was researching like the old, the demon that's there and the occult stuff. And the priest guy wasn't doing it. So now he needs to tell somebody a story. So he wants to tell his brother, which his brother is Les, which is the cop. So now they're going to be meeting up at the mansion. So they meet up at the mansion the next day. And like, I guess this was like an offshoot of the mansion where there was just a random like fireplace out in the middle of a field.
I saw that. Yeah. I think it's like, I don't know, it's like some kind of ruins or something, like where there used to be a building and there was but that was really random where they're just standing beside this fireplace out in the middle of the field. Yeah,
and his gimmick was he is trying to explain to Les the whole occultic and science, moons and shit. And Les he's like, no, you're just crazy. I'm not dealing with all that stuff. You just got to put it past you. You know what I mean? You're just been stressed out and stuff. So he leaves, and then we see a hand grab our boy, the brother of Les. And every time we see this hand grab somebody, then it's the next day. And we can see that now Les and Delissa, they're at the funeral for Les's brother because he also committed suicide as well, too. And this is when we actually see the Al Lewis. We see that he is actually the captain, Captain Levi. Okay?
Captain Levi.
And he was saying, he was saying, too, like, hey, I feel bad for you guys, too. You know what I mean? Like, because, Les is like, I don't know why he would kill himself. Like, he didn't have any reason to do that. Like, and, I guess they also were talking about that Les's brother was also talking to the head doctor, which, my bad. The doctor was actually Victoria. She was the Dr. Victoria. And I believe the doctor that Les's brothers was seeing was like some sort of like, school therapy doctor named Victoria. So the Victoria was not the cop that I thought she was. It was, we'll get her name later. But Les basically has a co-work cop and she's going undercover. But Victoria, she is the one that is that's basically is the doctor therapy. And Les's brother really liked her because they were on like a first name basis, and he liked her a lot too because he said it was like kind of like the same age that he was and stuff. So he's kind of like smitten with her a little bit. All right, and this also to this guy, the captain was also saying like, hey, I feel bad for you guys because my son, he says his son was named Dwayne or something or Dante. He also committed suicide as well. A couple of years later or before this. So, the New York is like, we could see that there's some tension now between Delissa and Les, just because they were trying to plan a wedding and everything, you know what I mean? But he's all like distraught and stuff, obviously because his brother died and everything. And he just could not believe his brother would commit suicide. So he kind of figures out like, he's like going through a bunch of files and stuff. And he figures out that a bunch of people who killed themselves, they all were visiting this Victoria girl. All right?
Yeah.
So he's going to go investigate her brother. All right? And boy, does he ever. Okay?
Does he ever.
So that leads us to the scene where he goes and meets her at the school. And I don't even know what I was expecting with this, but this kind of threw me off a little bit. So he's like meeting with Victoria, right? And he's all talking about, her
Yes.
credentials and, what she does and why she decided to be a therapist. She said a lot of students like her being young because they feel like they can open up to her more and everything. And then
Oh yes.
Les says something like, hey, I was doing my research and you're actually connected with all the people that did suicide. And the next thing you know, she just stares at him. All right. And then randomly she gives Les a wet dream, okay, of her getting topless, and her start kissing and fucking, and then he wakes up in a cold sweat, and he's like, oh shit, and then he gets what did he think? Did he think he just randomly got horny?
I don't know. I don't understand any of this at all. Because she's both of those people are terrible actors, but they're delivering their lines so monotone and so wooden that I can't really even tell what they were supposed to be. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah. So yeah, that all happened, and he just basically just leaves, and this is when we get some of the kids now out there. We see some of the actual kids and stuff. And this is when we get a whole random scene of some jock kids who fake slitting their wrist because he didn't have a good manicure. So
yeah,
another thing we probably couldn't do. We probably couldn't have done this in the 80s, but we definitely can't do this in 2024.
No, but the thing about this movie though is when I watched it, I did not know. It took me a long time to pick up on that they were doing a practical joke. This movie looks so bad that I thought that this was actually legitimately part of the movie. Because when he's cut his wrist and you can clearly tell that the knife is made out of rubber, it literally bends on camera. You can see him bend the rubber knife on camera. And then when he started talking about his manicure, then I was like, oh, okay. But I legitimately thought this was a special effect they used in the movie. That's the kind of quality of special effect that we're talking about here.
So now we get the captain. We could tell that something's weird with him. Captain Levi. So he calls up Delissa. All right. And he is telling her, and we don't see her at all. He's just doing his whole. This is the part you were talking about. He's just doing his whole acting, but sipping a martini.
Yes,
he's very worried about smoking a cigar. He's all worried about Les, and he tells Delissa to meet him at the mansion. Okay, and we're gonna meet up there. We're gonna discuss, what we could do about him. And of course, she was hesitant at first, but then she agrees to go along with them. So I thought the scene was pretty cool, but the whole thing I was thinking is okay, he's supposed to be sinister, but he just sounds he sounds like the grandpa from the Munsters trying to be sinister.
Yeah, exactly. He sounds exactly so that guy, Al Lewis, has played a couple of roles that I can think of. He played Grandpa Dracula on the Munsters, and he also played a role with Fred Gwynn on a show called Car 54. And he played both roles basically the same way. And he played both of those roles the same way he played this role. Where he just has this kind of comical New York accent. He's fine the way he delivers his lines, but you just don't get that he's sinister in any kind of way.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. He just doesn't come across that way. It's just really, it's really bizarre. It's just, you'll hear that word a lot, but it is very bizarre.
So we also found out two things as well. So there was a random dog that was around there, attacking Les and stuff, but he got away. And we could see that the dog Levi had a portrait of the dog in his room. And we also found out that the jock house, or the whatever frat house they're part of.
The frat house.
They have inherited the mansion to their frat house as well, too.
Which, I think that's also a little weird. Why does the fraternity inherit this giant mansion?
Well, you know, brother, they had the school funds had enough to and in the 80s, brother, to buy mansions for their frat houses.
I guess so.
Okay, come on, man. We gotta put the money where the important stuff is. Fratting.
Right. Fratting.
Okay. Come on now. So now his detective partner, she wants to get out of the house. Like, she doesn't want to do this she doesn't want to do the undercover cop thing at the school anymore. She wants to be an action brother. And it's like, no, we still got to find out why these kids are, doing what they're doing over here. And, Les is saying, like, okay, well, maybe you can go, check out the mansion house and look around there. That's probably won't be, too much craziness going on over there. Oh, little does he know. All right. What's going on over there. So we do have a scene of her walking around the mansion house, and she eventually gets, like, attacked and grabbed. Okay. And now now we can see that the Victoria girl is like some sort of like witch, I guess, and she is a part of this cult. All right, that they have to sacrifice people to their master, which we'll find out who the master is later, to gain immortality, I believe.
That sounds about right. Sure.
Okay.
That's good enough.
So basically with this, we have Delissa. She is kind of like stuck in the house. They kind of trapped her in there. And
yes.
Now we have, the detective cop girl. She got grabbed and she's the one being sacrificed. Okay. And now Les, he kind of figures out all this stuff is happening. All right. And then during all this as well, the frat people come over to start doing some frat stuff. And through the frat people, that's when we figure out the history of this house and everything with it as well. So
this is so ridiculous.
So they kept going back and forth, but basically the history was, I believe this man is like Hartman or something. He used to be the owner of the mansion. Okay, he was a really rich guy. Like, he had was very rich and everything. And they say he disappeared one day. And basically what he did was, he was really big into, like, the occult stuff. So he raised the occult. And I guess he was trying to find his demon self. Okay? And that's basically what happened. So he kind of disappeared after a while. And they think that the kids and everybody that thought he just got murdered and stuff, and they couldn't find the body. All right. So these kids are like walking around the house, and then we kept cutting back and forth to like the ritual room. Okay. All right, where Victoria is doing her thing, and like basically we have about like 3 or 4 girls there, right? And they're all like, they have the panties on, but they're all topless. Okay, you know what this reminded me of? Remember that band that we saw with God, I forgot the band. Goat Whore? Spitter or something? Spider?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I thought that Spider was kind of goofy. Like, I mean, they're good dudes, but yeah, I mean, it just looks like so like pretentious, like fake, like white makeup. Like it's just like people who are like I don't know, they're like regular everyday nerds, and then like oh, we're gonna put on our robes and white face paint, and now we're evil, which is exactly what this looks like.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's like you find some makeup from the Party City, you put it on, you have somebody draw with magic marker a pentagram. Okay, you got a couple lights in there, and you start chanting some shit. That's basically what we got over here. It's fantastic. I loved it. Okay. And
they look like they're in a stairwell.
Yeah.
Like, they don't even look like they're in a room. Like, there's like stairs beside them. It looks like they're just like in a stairwell shooting this.
Yeah. And by the way, the cop girl, her name is Taylor, by the way. Sorry. So Taylor is the one that got caught and everything. They're doing the ritual shit on her.
They're sacrificing her.
Yes. So now, Les is showing up too, and Les, he sees all the kids there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids are kind of like, they're getting like separated, like, you know, how kids do. We have one couple that goes to have some sex. And then we have this other couples and stuff. They're just wandering around checking out the house and everything. So they're all looking around, and they start noticing there's some weird stuff going on, you know, in parts of the house. So Les actually kills one of the ritual people, okay, saying this is for his brother, even though I don't know how we know. And he killed him like some sort of like fancy knife, okay?
Yeah.
The kids are finding some place to have some sex, okay? And then the one blonde kid, she actually gets attacked by, I guess they have ritual zombies. Do you have any? So when you do a ritual normally at your house, do you rent the zombies, or how do you do this?
No, I think they raise the zombies from the dead or something, because in the credits they're listed as mummies.
Oh, mummies. Oh, okay. My bad. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, they're fucking. They didn't have any wraps around their head at all, but they're mummies.
Right. Exactly.
My bad.
There's also no vampires in this either, but whatever.
Well, that's the second story, brother. This is the first one.
Well, that's true. There's no vampires in that story, and
yeah,
I don't know. That's whatever.
This is the ritual sex party, brother. Okay, that's what this movie's about. All right. So we have this one blonde girl, okay, and she's the one that, you know, freaked out getting attacked by the mummies, okay, and they're doing more. I like my notes. They're doing more ritual on Taylor. All right.
So the blonde girl you're talking about, I'm trying to remember. Is she the one that's like
the younger blonde?
She's like the hot blonde that's running around in the cut off crop top. Yeah. I became interested as soon as she showed up in the movie.
Yeah, man. That's how you do it. Got to get that 18 to 34 male. All right.
Exactly.
So she's now telling the whole crew, like, hey, you know, there's some weird people around here and stuff. Now they got to go find the couple that had the sex. They got to go find them. They run into the other girl, the other blonde girl, and then they're like, okay, well, we all got to leave out of here. This place is kind of getting kind of weird. Let me go find the boyfriend. So they get there, they find him, and he's all bloody and he got killed. All right. So now they're all like kind of like really being worried, and they're getting scattered, and they eventually walked themselves in to the ritual room. And Victoria sees them, and then she sends all the goons onto all of them to kill them because they cannot see what we're doing here. All right, they know us. They see our master plot. Destroy them now.
And then she's like, we must kill them.
Yes, we must kill them. So a lot of the kids, basically at this time, a lot of the kids were getting killed. So a lot of the mummy kids were killing them. So we only got like a very limited crew with the kids, frat kids going on right now. And this is when they meet up with Les, and Les says he's not one of them, and he's kind of like protecting them. So they start fighting stuff, and they actually, this part like totally threw me off. So they ended up in this like random storage closet. Okay.
Yes.
Which is like it has like the surge protector was in there. So they noticed this thing popped out of these boxes and shit. And it was the Hartman guy.
Yeah.
Okay. And he now explains to them that he found this crystal that he can maneuver himself around the demon or something. Bro, this was like throwing me off. Like I was trying to get what they were saying, but I was just not. I was like, why is he in a closet? What is going on here? So this is like
that's what I was thinking too. Like, has he been in there the whole time?
Okay, so we did get a couple. This movie, we did get a couple, and I'm not trying to like get every little detail about this shit, but we did get a couple Evil Dead cameras going on where we see the thing, and I thought that was supposed to be like the demon that threw out the house and stuff, but apparently that was supposed to be like Hartman or something. He can kind of like
been hiding in the house,
but the demon, the main ritual demon guy can't get him. Because he found this crystal gimmick. Okay?
Okay.
So with this crystal, he can live forever, but he can only do certain things. All right? You got that?
Sure.
Sure. So now they find Delissa, okay, and the ritual people want to take her out, like they want to grab her out of there. So they're kind of like going back and forth and everything, and more now the kids are like trying to get out of there, so more of them die. They're starting to get like slashed up, and we eventually get Les and Delissa. They get out of there. They're running away, and they're kind of like taking Delissa. Like they basically forced Delissa to go out into the forest, and like all these, she's like walking and stuff, and all these like Halloween costume demons are following her around, like that one with the devil mask on. I thought that was funny.
When I was thinking of that, it was like, you know that story about when they made Star Wars, the first one. The reason that everything looks so random in the cantina scene is because that's just the masks and costumes they could find. But this is why one guy looks like a devil in the cantina scene of Star Wars. Yeah, and that's exactly what I thought when I saw this. So it was like, oh, they just had this mask laying around. But yeah, so there's like this devil guy, there's a guy in a devil mask who's like, it's supposed to be like the demon, right? He's supposed to be the one they're worshiping, or did I get that wrong?
I know. I'm not really sure what he was supposed to be. He was just like a demon guy.
Okay.
He was just there.
And in a spirit Halloween mask.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Probably not even that. It's probably like a Walmart mask.
I mean, it didn't look too bad. All right. So now Victoria, she's getting kind of pissed. So she needs a sacrifice, or else the master's going to be pissed off. So basically, she sacrificed one of her titty girls. Okay?
Yes.
To gain some power. All right? And now she's trying to find them as well, too. Or she's trying to find Les and the blonde girl. Okay? And then they also, too, they want to find... Les and his crew, they end up like getting the crystal from the guy. Okay? They end up getting this guy's crystal. Okay? And so we have some more kids. They're fighting the ritual mummies. All right? And now we have the doctor and Les. Now they're fighting. They're squaring off against each other. All right? And,
with swords.
Yeah, with swords.
Don't forget that.
Yeah. They're fighting up with some swords now, right?
And the slowest sword fight ever on film.
Yes. And then, like, I like it. I think she says, like, oh, you're clever. You know that the sword is the only weapon that can destroy me.
Like, how does he know that? Like, how would he know that? Like, he knows that, or is the sword is the only weapon that can destroy? Like, first of all, why is the sword the only weapon that can destroy her?
Well, why did she even tell him that?
Why did she tell him that? Like, I guess she assumed that he knew because he had the sword, but he actually probably had a sword because that's what he could find laying around in this Hogwarts house. But I don't. It's so insane. Like it's like, oh, the sword, this random sword is this random weapon is the only thing that can destroy me. Not a knife, not a dagger, not an axe, but a sword. The sword can destroy me, and I'm going to tell you that that's what can destroy me, so that you can kill me.
So they end up fighting. I think he stabs her, but my notes don't say that, so maybe I missed it. Do you know what happened? Did he stab her or something?
I believe so, yes. Yeah.
So, because then we still see Delissa. She's going down the forest. She's getting dragged away into the forest to go meet the master. And we find out that the master is none other than Captain Levi. He shocked me, brother. I couldn't tell. What a swerve.
Yeah. All right. Al Lewis is the big bad guy.
He is the main ritual demon sex god guy. All right. And he's there. And he is the one. I guess he wants to take Delissa as his bride, basically. Okay. Mm-hmm. And Lee shows up with a sword and everything. And he's like, no, Delissa, she's under my trance now. All right. And he's like, you're the monster and everything. And he's like, yes, Victoria was the one that served me. Okay. He said, like, she is the one that loved these little brats. And she's the one that basically what Victoria was doing was with her witch powers. She was the one, having these kids, sacrifice themselves, kill themselves. So she could basically be like, I guess live forever or something, even though she couldn't because the magic sword destroyed her. Okay.
Right. Because,
And he's all
she'll live
like,
forever unless the magic sword destroys her.
And now Levi is saying that he also sacrificed his son to become this ultimate power too. All right. And he tells us he is not a vampire. He's a demon. Get that right, brother. Okay. Don't tell me a vampire. I'm a demon. Okay.
Right.
All right. And then he wants to make.
Even though this is not the vampires movie. But anyway.
Yeah, but you got to tell you, he's not a vampire, brother. He's a demon. All right?
Exactly.
And then now, Les is now I probably like my notes. Les rambles about people that Levi killed. All these people. So now, like, the list is about to come to Levi, and like he can't really. She's under a trance, but she can't do anything.
Right.
So Les, he has that crystal, right, and he just throws the crystal at them. All right, and then we have this big explosion, and then it's the next morning, okay, and he's waking up. He sees Delissa. And he's like, what happened? He's like, oh, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. Everything's back to normal like it was.
Sure.
All right. And, by the way, like, Levi, like, he still had all that ritual face paint on during this whole time. So he looked like a reject from Kiss. All right. During this whole fucking movie. All right.
I was thinking he looked like the 1990s Misfits, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on, brother. It's a little more glam than that. All right.
Okay, sure.
So when he wake up, his face paint was just magically gone. I guess like when the demon goes away, your face paint goes away too. Is that how that works?
Sure, I guess so.
Maybe that's what Kiss did. Yeah. You know what I mean? When they went face paint, they're just like, okay, we used the crystal to get our demon Kiss demons, and then we went normal. You know what I mean? Maybe that's what they did.
And then they got in the 90s, they got the demon back, so then they had to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because the album sales were going down, so they had to go to the demon again.
Exactly.
Okay. So they kiss and everything. All right. And now they're going to be planning his wedding. And then Delissa looks back. And now she's looking all evil. Like she has possessed the old evil spirit or whatever. So, and that's how.
Her eyes glow. That's how you know she's evil.
And that's how that one ended. I did have a lot more notes on that one, but I was like, you know what? That's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
I was like, I looked at my notes for that one. I mean, it's basically how he explained it. You know what I mean? Not too much with that one. I enjoyed some of it, but I think this particular story, this Fright House story, like I think the super evil boss demon Levi, our boy the Grandpa Munster, he wasn't doing it for me.
It's just a weird. It's just a weird casting choice.
It wasn't built that well. Okay. So that brings us to our second story. Abaddon.
Let's say we move on.
We move on to the second story, brother. Abaddon. Okay.
Which has been filmed twice at this point. This is the third time that we're trying to get this to air, right?
Oh yes. Yeah, it's like three. Yeah, it's like almost like three different versions of this movie. So we finally got it.
So, we saw it originally as vampires, and then we tried to see it as negatives, and now we're seeing it as Abaddon Part 2.
Part 2, brother.
Of Fright House. In Fright House, I mean, in anthology movies, I tend to think of an anthology movie as having a story of some kind that, like a bumper story that ties them all together. And this was just like two little movies put together to make a quote unquote anthology. But it passes the test good enough. Yeah,
buddy. So we start off in like another mansion looking school. All right. I was like, God, we're back here. Back. All right. And we see this girl, she gets attacked. She starts screaming. All right. The guy sees her. He starts screaming a little bit. And then I like the part where she screams again and then she just dies.
Yeah.
And then the guy gets like grabbed. And then we hear like, Rose, is that you? Rose, is that you? And then like after the guy gets attacked, we hear like this. It's like we see that it says abandoned estate 75 years later. All right.
I love these. I love all these movies that are like have these like crazy time skips.
Yeah.
Like we'll watch 5 minutes of a story and then all of a sudden it's like 75 years
75,
later. Like,
you know, we couldn't do 74, but it's 75 years later.
Yep. Yep.
We have a old New York guy, not related to Les, rambling.
Yeah.
We find out that his name is Anthony later on, but he is rambling. I mean, you never heard of rambling like this guy. And he's all talking about starting again. There's a bunch of skeletons in their closets. You know what I mean? They all want to live we should have lived in Paris together. She wanted to be younger and all this stuff. And he starts rambling. And this is when we see the title Abaddon on there. So the big gimmick about this movie is there's like an art school. All right, I guess that's where the girl got killed, was at this big art school. And it's run by this girl named Abaddon. I believe her name is Malene Abaddon or Michelle Abaddon. Let me see. It's Madeline Abaddon.
Madeline. Yeah, it's Madeline Abaddon. Yeah.
And she is like the big like school, you know, girl and stuff. And we also see the scene where there's like this art gallery going on. All right. Great 80s music, though. I thought this movie had some great 80s music stuff. And it was an art gallery for some Twisted Love. You ever been to a Twisted Love art gallery there, Allison?
Man, that's like my whole life.
You know, I can go on about art galleries because I actually have some friends that do like art galleries and stuff. And I actually thought this one looked pretty neat. And I was like, okay, you know, I could see it being, you know, I can dig it. If they start playing these 80s music in here, you know what I mean? I can dig it. So we make freight and marketing stuff. They're basically talking about the Frank guy. He wants to get money from this, you know, from this investor guy to invest into the school and everything. But the guy, he kind of wants to meet Abaddon, and he's saying like, well, she doesn't really meet people. She doesn't really like to talk to a lot of people. He's like, well, she'll talk to me if she wants to do business and stuff. Because check this out, everybody. He wants to make her a commercial. Oh,
ooh,
brother. You know what? That's it. That's new technology for the 80s, brother. Making herself a commercial. Yes. So now, you know, we figure out that, you know, this school also used to be like a science layer too. So it used to be Abaddon's husband had it as like a science school, but then when he passed away, she turned it into an art school. So we're getting a little bit of that as well too. And of course, this guy wants his private meeting. We see Abaddon, she's in the window and stuff. So now we're having all the girls, you know, the new school girls show up to the school. All right. And this is when we're starting meeting a couple different girls in the school. And one of the girls that we made, her name is Ion.
Yes.
And her gimmick is I couldn't believe this. This is so 80s right here. Her gimmick is she liked this dude named Carl. All right. And they met in Europe. All right. And so they met in Europe, and I guess they were fucking on each other. And I guess he is the one that told her about this art school. So she joined the art school to further her photography art, but also to meet up with him again. All right. So she can't find Carl because we see that Carl. Allison, let me ask you a question here.
Oh God, yeah.
So let's say you got early to the art school, right? All right, you're a very artsy guy. You know what I mean? You got yourself a Walkman.
Yeah, that's what everybody says about me.
Yeah, very artsy.
I have my Walkman because it's 1989.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's not far from the truth. Like
now, you have
1989. I'm walking around with my Walkman for sure.
Now you got a couple places to study. Would you do it in your dorm? Would you do it in the lunchroom? Would you do it in like a library? Maybe. Or would you go down to a creepy looking death dungeon?
I would go to the death dungeon, man. That's where you get the best studying done.
That's true. You and Carl will get along because that's exactly what he did.
Yep.
So he goes down to this dungeon for some reason. Like, I guess it's like the basement of it looked like a dungeon, okay? It looked like a rock dungeon, but it's the basement of the school to do some studying. Right?
Sure.
And then like a flashlight hits him, and then now he's dead. Did I get that right? Okay.
That's
Vampires,
exactly what
bro.
happened. Yeah, that's exact vampires, bro.
Yeah. So Ion's now trying to figure out where he's at, and he's meeting with this. So this other girl that she meets. Okay. I don't know if I got her name. I think her name is Helen. She spills the beans that she saw Carl hanging out with this other tall black-haired girl. So we also see that Randall, which is actually the New York guy, he's talking to Madeline, and he's like just trying to, saying things are getting worse around here. You know what I mean? Yeah. I guess like a lot of stuff is going to hell right now, and she's like, don't worry about it. I got this all under control. All right, so everything is good to go, under control. And then they talk about a little bit about her husband's machine. He's all talking about like the machine and stuff, and how powerful it is, and like how it's gonna it's unattainable to break and stuff. And then she leaves, and then he leaves with a mop, which I thought was funny. All right. So the kids are now arriving in like the main hall because Abaddon's about to give her speech. We have some great 80s music playing off and stuff. Yes, that's when we meet Helen Johnson. All right. And they're talking about, filing out the forms and everything, like I was saying. That's where she's meeting Ion. All right. And our main girl, so the Helen girl, I thought she was going to so Helen wasn't the main girl. I thought she was going to be like more of a figure in this, but she was only in a couple scenes, talking to Ion, spilling the beans on Gary fucking with her. But Deborah, okay.
Yeah.
She is the one, all right, who is like the main girl in this one because she is also looking for Carl as well. And she can't find him. And she's also really big into tarot cards. Okay?
Yes.
So now she goes and visits the Charles guy, Charles Hamron, which is obviously played by Jones, like we're saying. And this is when they're meeting. And then Charles is saying, like, I never met a girl like this before. She's like giving me weird energy. She's probably a girl from one of those schools and stuff, I can tell, but she's just like a weird energy about her. Mm-hmm. And then he's like talking to her a little bit. They do some tarot card shit, and then they both get sick. Right? And then he leaves and he comes back. I guess there was like some like weird connection thing with him. And so this whole movie didn't explain exactly what Charles was. I thought he was just a guy who's old, who used the machine, and now he's getting older now. So he needs to use the machine again to stay alive, but we'll see what happens with that. So he takes her home and stuff, and then like Deborah says like she trusts him and stuff, and Charles now meets with Abaddon in the park and stuff, and she is saying he's basically talking to her, saying like, I need the notes from your husband and stuff. I need this machine and everything. And she's like, no, I got everything under control. I'm going to, use these kids and, obviously get the energy light. And Charles really doesn't want her to do it anymore. He's like, I need the notes and stuff from this. We got to like stop it. And she's like, no. I'm basically going to be taking care of all this stuff myself. All right. So they do that main meeting at the hall. All right. And they can see Gary's not there. And then Abaddon, she is doing her speech, and you could tell that Ion, she's starting to feel a little dizzy now. So I guess Abaddon has her sights set on Ion. Okay. And then now they're talking about the history of the whole school and everything. It was built by her father, and the fourth thing, they had a husband there and everything. It used to be a science school. Now it's like an art school and stuff. And she says, like, there's two areas of this place that are off limits, the basement and the fourth floor. We can see the New York guy telling these kids to get off the fourth floor. All right. And now Deborah is... So the big thing about this machine that they're also talking about, Abaddon and Charles, is like there's like too much negative stuff around here. I guess like what the machine does, it takes like the positive energy from people.
Sure. Right.
And it takes positive energy, you mix it with positive energy, and that's how you can kind of like live forever. But if you have too much negative in there, that's when you start going down a little bit. You got all that?
Sure. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Now, I do like this part, though. Okay? So they're talking everything, all right? But, you know, Charles, we have a problem, but she says, I'm taking it under control. She said, I'm getting stronger. All right? The negative, you know, is not gonna take me. All right? And then Charles like, I want the notes. All right, everything. And then we get this random 80s song that, like, tells us what's, like, happening.
Yeah,
it's like
Tony Bon Jovi music. Yeah,
it's like if I may, bro, I gotta find the song because it was great.
Oh, I'm waiting. Yeah,
it's like,
I'm waiting.
What I see, don't lie to me. Turn away, whispers you go.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Although this shit was great. So Ion is now she meets the New York guy. All right. So now Ion, she runs into the New York guy, but she's like blows him off, and she's looking around for Gary some more. All right, and she says like, you know, this is when she says like, you know, I'm the girl from Europe. I came over here, and I'm just looking for him to stuff to see if I could see him and everything, because she was gonna go to her acting class, but she wanted to go to the science class because she knew that's where Gary was supposed to be registered at. All right.
Yeah.
So now we have the Deborah girl. She is now sneaking around, and she finds a book, okay, about all this, all the Madeline's energy book that's there. The Abaddon's, they need, you know, the book there. And then she gets out of there because she hears some weird sounds, okay? So one of the girls like dreams of Gary, okay? And I was like, fuck, we got another ritual room? Come on, this guy, Anthony, he loves his ritual rooms, okay?
He does.
And it has Charles, Deborah, and all right, and then yeah, there's like more ritual rooms in there. And so basically this ritual room this one was like weird. So Deborah's like sleeping, right? And Charles is like in his like ritual room. Okay, like I guess like Deborah was dreaming about Gary or whatever. I don't know. Maybe he's like a demon in her dreams or something now. But now Charles is like in like this candle ritual room, and he kept saying, Deborah, call me, Deborah. Call me, Deborah. And next thing you know, you hear the phone ring, and it takes this guy like 10 minutes to answer the phone. I'm like, bro, just you told her to call you, okay?
Can't you be ready?
It's your fucking ritual magic, okay? Just get over there. So they call her and stuff, all right? And she's like, I need to see you and stuff, all right? So they go on meet. So she feels like there's some evil in the school and stuff going on about this Abaddon school. And this is when she's like, I read this book about a machine, all right? And I found all this stuff in these books and all this negative stuff about these books and stuff. And then Charles is acting like he doesn't know like about it. He's like pretending like he doesn't know about it. All right. And he's like, ask her, how much do you know about all this stuff? She's like, well, I found the lab and I found these books and all these. Basically, she found all the notes that Charles was looking for. Okay, about positive energy and everything and how to stay alive from it. All right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then basically what they're saying is the husband, Martin, he became pure negative. All right, to stay alive. That's what became a super serial killer.
Wow.
For having too negative energy there, Allison. All right, we're gonna get you on that machine. Not liking these movies. Get that negative out of you, brother.
Yeah, because I don't know if anything's going to make me like this, but I don't know. I didn't have all negative to say about it.
So then now Deborah, she gives us her life story.
Yeah,
where she was a baby in Paris. All right. She grew up in a foster home and everything. Okay. And she basically came to love for art and everything. And that's how she kind of like found out about this school and everything. And then you can see that Charles is looking kind of weird, like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So basically Charles is like, we got to find that book again, and Deborah, she has to like get the book, and we're gonna have to destroy it. So now we have so this is a weird world. This Charles guy. So like, I'm still not exactly sure what he is, because
we know he's not supposed to be in this movie because his scenes were shot for a different movie.
Because like he randomly plays like right now he's like all these stories playing out just like I said in my head. My cards are. I'm like, what?
Well, yeah, he's kind of a psychic, right? Like he does tarot cards, but I think they call tarot cards in this movie. But then they get his tarot cards, and it's supposed to like tell the future about what they're going to be doing or whatever, or what's going to be happening for the next 61 minutes into this movie.
So basically, he now calls up because he figured something out by all his tarot cards and Deborah's story. So he calls, Deborah back over there, and he's like, "Hey, I'm sorry I got you involved with all this stuff, and I just need you to leave out of here. I'm gonna go take care of everything. I just need you to leave out of here for a little while, because their plan is now to get the Abaddon book and machine and destroy it. Okay, and." Sure. He's like, I hate you. I got you involved with this. And he's like, do you trust me if you go away for a couple of days? And Deborah's like, yes, I trust you. So now we have Charles. He meets with Abaddon in the dark. Okay, of course. And now he starts bringing up, hey, remember when we were in Paris together? I'm so sorry that I left you and everything. But you had a sickness. It wasn't like your normal sickness. It was like a different style sickness. He's like, you were pregnant, weren't you? And she looks at him and was like, I knew it. So now we can tell that Charles and Madeline Abaddon, their child is Deborah. Got all that now?
Uh-oh. I got it.
So you have more 80s music as the kid, as Ion walks up the stairs. Okay, great 80s music. I love it. She goes to room 16. All right. And this is when she's trying to go to the, trying to find Carl, sorry. Trying to find Carl. And, they're basically saying, like, we haven't seen him this whole time. He pretty much just skipped around. All right. And we can also see that Abaddon during this time, she's like turning on her machine. Uh-oh. She ain't playing around right now, brother. So we go to the actual, like, acting class. All right. So I guess Ion didn't go to the science class. She just went to the acting class.
Dude, like, I don't think any of these people went to an acting class. I mean, let's be fucking real.
Mr. Fuller, he teaches acting 101. All right. And then he's like telling all these kids, put your feet down and everything. I love this scene. I thought it was funny. All right. So Madeline, she's getting that machine already and stuff. Like, she's ready to go. And then you just hear this. Tight, relax. Tighten up, relax. All right, and then all this stuff with this Abaddon, she's doing all her effects with the machine now. And now Ion's starting feeling like a little weird. And this teacher's like, Ion, are you having some sort of out-of-body experience? And she's like, I got to leave. So she leaves. So she goes up the stairs. That's what I was thinking at this point, too. Yeah, exactly. She's going up the stairs. She's very faint and everything. We have more sound effects going on. She's going down the stairs now. We just hear do it for some reason. All right. She asked for Gary. All right. And she's like, seeing what's wrong with her and stuff because she's starting to feel kind of weird. All right. And basically, what happens is Ion finally runs into Carl, but then Carl basically kills her because he's some sort of like house demon now. All right.
Uh-oh.
And now Deborah now calls Charles. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And said that I've been telling him. It says like Carl has been killing him. The whole, he's like, I think he killed Ion and stuff, and now the whole school is in turmoil now. All right. And he's like, okay, well, let me look at my tarot cards, and then, and then they all leave. All right. Yeah. So now they go into the place. It's all deserted now. All right, and this is when they. This is Charles and Deborah.
Yeah.
And they're trying to go there to actually take care of the book and everything. So Deborah goes back. She sees Abaddon. Okay, and I guess she wasn't able to get Ion, so now she's going to use Deborah as a replacement. All right, Charles shows up. He gets attacked by the Carl guy. He knocks her. They start fighting a little bit, but of course, Charles wins. All right, and he is now going to figure out how to turn off this machine. And then now Abaddon, she's getting ready to transfer, I guess, the positive energy from Deborah inside of her. All right, but then Charles shows up. He's like, "Hey, you can't do this. That's our daughter." Okay, mm-hmm. But Abaddon, she don't give a shit. She's like, no. I need this. It's all gonna work out. And eventually, they actually touch hands together. We have another big explosion thing, and then like, the end of this movie was like the most weirdest crap I've ever seen. That didn't have nothing to do with this movie. So we cut back and we don't know what happened to the house or the mansion or any of the characters, but we see like this guy pick up a girl in like a car. And he's like this long hair guy. Right. And I guess he's picked up this hitchhiker basically. And he's saying like, hey, he's talking about Jesus and how he's going to go to all these drug addicts and rescue people from their bosoms. You know what I mean? Right. And put some Christ into them and help out. It's just super creepy guy. All right. But his plan is basically he's going to be like one of them religious guys who goes out and preys on drug addicts and stuff and tries to get him Jesus or something.
Right.
And now the person in the car is like, okay, well, can I join you? Right? And she's like, yeah, you can join me and stuff. That's fine. And then we turn and we see it's actually the Deborah girl. And we're left to think that now she is the new demon machine, the everlasting life girl.
I guess.
Abaddon.
Sure. She's now Abaddon, yes. I guess.
That's ended, brother. God, that was a hard one.
Holy fuck. What the hell was that?
I thought I got most of the story, but there were so like minute things in there. And I'm like, do I need to talk about this? Like, yeah, kind of weird shit. So, but yeah, like, this is I don't know. Okay, so let's get this part first. Which story did you actually like better? The Fright House or the Abaddon one?
I think I liked Abaddon better.
I would say that too. I kind of liked it better too.
Although I liked the blonde girl in the crop top in the first movie better, and I almost said that one because of that. But no, I liked Abaddon better. I think it was a little bit better of a story.
Yeah, I mean, because the story was basically like we were saying, like it was this husband created this machine where you could basically live forever. All right, but you got to prey off these people's positive energy, so that's why she created like this school. All right, to prey off these girls like positive energy or whatever. Even though I don't know how do you hide the bodies? I have no idea. But they had the problem was the evil husband was a negative energy running through the school, so he was the one kind of like killing certain people. He's the one that turned the Carl guy into a demon monster guy. We had Charles, who was basically he was a fortune teller guy in this movie. I don't know. I don't know how this has to do anything with the vampires with his character, but he had a relationship with Abaddon. They created Debbie. He didn't know he got her pregnant, and Debbie, through her magic of foresight, she got into art and she joined the place. Now she's trying to take him down. Now she turned herself into the Abaddon demon. Do I got all that right?
I guess so. That sounds exactly.
And this girl Ion literally moved all the way from like Europe just because she loved this guy Carl guy so much. I guess he gave some good dick that she moved all the way over there, and she just got sacrificed. I got all that right?
Yep.
Okay.
pretty much.
But yeah, I'll go with the Abaddon one too. I thought I liked the music in it, and it had a convoluted story, but I thought it was like, I don't know, just a little bit. I could tell like the actual story is a little more creative. Like I was saying in the Fright House, like the dude, it's a great guy, but him being the ritual master guy just totally threw me off, and it was stupid.
It's so ridiculous because he doesn't even play the role different, right? Like he plays it almost exactly the same way he plays the grandpa in the Munsters. So it would just be like watching the Munsters and finding out that the grandpa is actually the bad guy.
Yeah,
it's just weird. It's just fucking weird. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. But he was a name actor that people would have known, and he probably could afford him. So that's how we got Al Lewis as the villain in this.
So very interesting, because we had our boy Les, first movie trying to get his revenge. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just trying to get married and stuff, trying to be a good cop, trying to take down all these ritual titty witches. Come on, brother.
Titty witches.
All right. But yeah, like this is a very interesting story, I would say. So hope I got the main points out of it, because boy, there's a lot of convoluted shit in most of these stories. But
I just kind of got to see this one or not.
But join us here next week, brother, for another crazy tale that we're going to be talking about.
Picks up though. From
a whisper to a scream.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, it's going to pick up next week. This is going to be better, right?
Yeah, another one that has another famous actor. Why we don't know why he's in this movie, Vincent Price, brother. So that should be interesting.
Well, you'll know when you see it.
Yeah.
When you watch it, you'll know why he's in this.
So, but yeah, join us for that, everybody, here on the RetroBlood. Hope you all enjoyed this this Fright House. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Like I said, you can find the full version on the YouTube. But join us here as we keep this anthology month going with from whisper to a scream. But I say, let's get on out of here with some Babylon AD. And I'm going to do Hammer Swings Down.
Sure.
All right.
Do it. Hammer swings down, because the hammer's swinging down on the... I'm not as good at this as you are.
Well, brother, our boy Charles, obviously he gave some good hammer to our girl Madeline.
Oh,
yeah. Back in Paris. I mean, that's how they created the Debbie girl who was raised up from the orphanage just to come here to the house and take her birthright, which is the evil, positive energy, everlasting life machine that is now destroyed or something. And now she's going to go on escapades with some weird religious cult guy. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have... that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah. Hammer swings down, brother.
Hammer swings down. Let's go.
That's all that Charles about. We're doing it. All right. I'll get out of here. All right, everybody. We'll see you here next week on the RetroBlood. Stay out, St. James Kind.
Yeah.
Have a good one, everybody. Don't forget your kitty rituals.
Exactly. See you guys.